With what we know about Rashford's future at Manchester United, essentially he doesn't really have one. For me, it's almost incredible that there's interest in Rasmus Højlund. If Eze makes that move, he's going to want to start. An Arsenal fan might look at that and think, well, hold on, we've got an excellent player there in Martin Odegaard. Does he want to be an understudy for Bukayo Saka?
Hello, I'm Angelina Kelly and welcome to The Window, talkSPORT's daily video transfer update and your go-to guide for all of the biggest football moves. Coming up, we will be chatting all things Manchester United, including their hunt for a striker, the latest on Marcus Rashford and Arsenal's pursuit of Eberechi Eze, plus so much more. And joining me today is talkSPORT's Ollie Klink. So Ollie, first up, let's talk Manchester United. They are still looking for a striker. Recent reports are linking Ivan Toney and Ollie Watkins to the club, especially if Rasmus Højlund does depart. Højlund has been linked to a move to Italy. Is that still on the cards?
Yeah, we know that there is still interest from Inter Milan in Rasmus Højlund, and we also know that despite the fact that Manchester United have signed Bryan Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha, the focus, the priority now is to get a new number 9 for Ruben Amorim, which is interesting when you think that there are other areas of the pitch, as you well know, Angelina, where they could be bringing in players and maybe fixing other departments on the pitch. You know, goalkeeper is the first one that comes to mind for me. But a completely new look front three would be very, very exciting for Manchester United. Two of the names that have come up in rumours, if you like, have been Aston Villa's Ollie Watkins. From what we understand, Watkins is a possibility, but this is going to depend on player sales. There's so many players who are on significant wages. Manchester United want to deal with that. They want to get some of these players out of the door, but they also have to be realistic and realise that because those wages are so high, it might be very difficult to find a club that's willing to pay for some of these players and bring them to their club. The other name that's been doing the rounds is Ivan Toney. It's not one that we've heard at this stage. In terms of links to Manchester United. So like I say, Watkins, he's a possibility, but again, it's not surprising. This is going to depend on whether Manchester United can shift some players off their wage bill.
You talk about shifting players on. It's Alejandro Garnacho's 21st birthday today. He's a bit of a Marmite player with fans. His future still remains unclear. Is there any update? Yeah,
well, many happy returns first to Alejandro Garnacho. Hope he's having a good day. Not too much in terms of movement. We know that Napoli value him at around £42 million. Napoli also interested in Jack Grealish as well from Manchester City. They want a new left winger. There were some links to Chelsea, but not quite sure that that's a move that's going to happen, especially because Chelsea have already brought in Jamie Gittins now for around £55 million, who's a left winger. So whether they now need the services of Garnacho is yet to be seen. But this is Chelsea, by the way. I mean, I won't be surprised if they sign me and you by the end of this window with the way that they do business. So you know, it's not obviously one that you can completely rule out, but at the moment, not too much movement on Garnacho. It is interesting with him, though, because I feel like when you look at the likes of Rashford and Sancho and Antony, they are on mega wages, whereas Garnacho, I don't think, is on similar money to that. So he might be one that's easier to get a permanent sale for.
And if you talk about United, you have to talk Marcus Rashford. There are reports that he's prioritising a move abroad. He's open to a loan or swap deal if the right opportunity arises and wants to compete for titles. He's returning to United for pre-season training on July 7th. This could be a bit awkward, right? I mean, surely something has to happen sooner rather than later. Or could this actually drag on?
Yeah, I mean, because with what we know about Rashford's future at Manchester United, essentially he doesn't really have one. And there are even reports that his number 10 might be given to Matheus Cunha, which feels like the kind of nail in the coffin. I think that relationship with Ruben Amorim obviously is broken down. You know, he eventually went on to Aston Villa on loan at the end of last season. The move that we believe he's very keen on and does want is the move to Barcelona. They are still, exploring that loan move for Rashford. The issue is, of course, not to go back to it, and it sounds like a broken record, but the wages. So that would be more likely to be a loan move. The thing I find interesting about this, though, Ange, is is that Barcelona is still chasing Nico Williams. They've got Rafinha at the club. I think it's going to be really difficult for Rashford to break into that Barcelona team. And I don't know, if I was Rashford heading into a World Cup year, I'd maybe want to be considering a bit more regular game time. Obviously, going to Barcelona, you are going to be competing for titles, and what a brilliant club that is to join. If it's game time he wants, though, maybe he should think about being interested in moving to a different club. If it's not, and he wants the prestige of joining Barcelona, then he'll be delighted to hear that there is still some interest there.
So do you think he should be perhaps lowering his expectations then if he does want to be considered for the World Cup?
I think when it comes to regular game time, yes, because like I mentioned, Rafinha is one of the best players in world football right now. If they manage to get a deal over the line for Nico Williams, I'm sure the Barcelona will be wanting to use him as much as possible. It's why I find that interest in Rashford quite strange. Hansi Flick, the Barca manager, does like his versatility. Obviously, Rashford is a player that can play through the middle. And Lewandowski, excellent player, but not getting any younger. But I don't know. I mean, you've seen him play, obviously, over the years. And for me, he's much better off the left than he is through the middle anyway.
I agree. It will be interesting to see if he does get the move. I don't think he will get the game time needed to be back in the England fold if the Barcelona move happens. But with United, is it a case of waiting for these outgoings, but Ollie Watkins is a name that definitely could be in the mix?
Yeah, like I said, a possibility. But I think Manchester United, especially with the money they've already spent on Cunha and on potentially Mbeumo, we do still think that he is on his way to Manchester United. With that money spent, I think it's going to be even more important for them to get some of those names off the books, players off the books, and wages off the books. But I don't know. I mean, when you think about how much Sancho, etc., Anthony, Rashford are on, it's surely only going to be loan moves that Manchester United can sort out for them. So they might need to be a bit clever with their business. The other issue as well, Ange, is obviously it was such a poor season last time out. For me, it's almost incredible that there's interest in Rasmus Højlund. I know it's a completely different league, but for what was it, 4 Premier League goals last season, hardly made impacts in games. I think Manchester United will be doing really well to actually sell him to a club like Inter Milan as well. It would be, for me, a great move for Rasmus Højlund, given that his move to the Premier League has not worked out at all.
I agree, and as a United fan, I'm hoping that the move will somehow happen. Over to Arsenal now and Eberechi Eze. He's seemingly high among their options to bolster the attack and would be separate to a striker and winger. So what does that mean exactly, and where would he fit in?
Yeah, that is a really interesting comment too. He's high up on their list of targets at the moment. Eberechi Eze is a player that can play on that left-hand side, but is also, I think, most effective in the number 10 role. That's where he plays for Crystal Palace. But, I mean, an Arsenal fan might look at that and think, well, hold on, we've got an excellent player there in Martin Odegaard. Okay, he didn't have the best season, I don't think, last time out, but not the worst. And he's also the captain, Odegaard. So it feels quite interesting if Arteta wants to bring in a player that would not just add depth. But, I mean, if Eze makes that move, he's going to want to start. And I think he has the talent to start. It does feel like a Mikel Arteta signing, though, doesn't it? In that sense that he loves a player that can shift around, that can play in different positions. It might change the style that Arsenal play with. It might be that he wants Eze and Odegaard on the pitch together so that they can interchange and both be creative in certain circumstances. And it would be a shift away from the way that Arsenal do operate and play right now. I think it would also potentially, and I think this is going to be so key for Arsenal in this window, they've got to not only sign a striker. I mean, that is just obvious, but they need to find a way to not be so reliant on Bukayo Saka, because I think even when Saka was fit last season, there was a number of games where that was almost, it felt like it was the only option was to go through Saka when they were in attack, and then when Saka was injured, that's when the game started getting frustrating. There were draws that should have been wins. So, yeah, I can understand their interest in Eze if they're looking to change things up from that perspective. By the way, his release clause is around £68 million, and also their North London rivals Tottenham were interested in Eze too. So they'd be swooping in ahead of them to grab him if they do manage to get that over the line. But yeah, slightly. I don't know about you, but I just find the fact that he'd be in that number 10 position quite strange. And the other thing is, what would it mean for the future of Kai Havertz? Because let's say they do bring in a striker. That's where Kai Havertz has been playing mostly over the last couple of seasons. So you'd imagine he won't be starting in that position. He can also play as a number 10. Well, if you've got Odegaard and Eze ahead of him in the queue, not quite sure that he'd take up that role on the pitch. If you go further back, they've signed Zubimendi, they've got Rice, they've got Marino, they're bringing in Christian Norgard. So I'm really interested to know how Kai Havertz would be used next season, given that not so long ago they spent 65 million on him.
I totally agree. It'd be fascinating if all these signings get across the line and they do sign a striker. What would the starting 11 even be? There's also been links to Noni Madueke. Ben Jacobs yesterday on the window revealed that Chelsea aren't looking to kick him out the door, but if the right offer came in, they would listen. But this is another player who potentially would have to fit into the starting 11.
Yeah, again, an interesting one. We know that he's a name that they are interested in. He's on their list, if you like, but there's no firm bid at this stage. But with Madueke, I mean, he was. I was just thinking about the England game recently, where I know they were playing Andorra, but he was the best player on the pitch. I think he started the season really well with Chelsea, and then, along with most of the rest of the squad, seemed to tail off in that middle section of the season before they, ramped up and managed to get into the Champions League by the end of it. But we're talking about a right winger predominantly. Noni Madueke can play on the left, but he much prefers the right-hand side, and that's where Bukayo Saka is. Once again, yeah, I mean, whether this is Arsenal, again, trying to get a bit of squad depth, but, Madueke, start of his career and wanting to probably get into that England World Cup squad. Does he want to be an understudy for Bukayo Saka? I'm not so sure. Does he always want to play on that left-hand side? I'm not sure either. So, yeah, I'm finding these targets fairly interesting from an Arsenal perspective at the moment, and we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, I mean, he is at the moment a player on their list, but like I say, no firm bid for Madueke at the moment.
And finally, Harvey Elliott, he was brilliant at the Under-21s European Championships. Liverpool's asking price has reportedly been set at £40 million plus with a buyback clause, or £50 million plus without a buyback clause. He wants regular football at an elite, possibly Champions League level. So what kind of club could you see him at?
Yeah, we know that he's been linked with a couple of clubs in Germany. Bayer Leverkusen have interest in Harvey Elliott. He's also been linked with RB Leipzig. Of course, Jurgen Klopp is the overlord, if you like, of those clubs, and we'll know Harvey Elliott from his time at Liverpool too. So a move abroad might be on the cards. In terms of the Premier League, we know that Brighton are a club that are interested. Potentially Fulham as well, a return to his former club. But yeah, I mean, I think that in Harvey Elliott's case, and what the player wants himself, he'll want to challenge himself with Champions League football, and I think his reason for not staying at Liverpool is, of course, the fact that he won't be able to get as much game time as he will elsewhere. That comes with being the understudy to Mo Salah. And yeah, it is interesting that Liverpool do want to potentially include that buyback clause, because what you might see, is if Harvey Elliott goes away and begins to shine, especially at a club like Bayer Leverkusen, who've had so much success in recent seasons, it might be that Liverpool are able to, access that option and get him back to the club. Once again, it just feels like Liverpool being smart about their business, either getting that higher fee or ensuring to themselves that if Harvey Elliott goes on to prove his talent and prove his worth, he's just had an excellent under-21 Euros. He was player of the tournament. It means that they'll be able to potentially bring him back when they're ready for him, if you like. So yeah, I think it's interesting, the links to Leverkusen too, because of course they've just lost quite a key player who plays in quite a similar position, Florian Wirtz. So, whether Harvey Elliott could go over there and stake his claim and be a starter for them would be an interesting one. But yeah, there's plenty of clubs that are looking at him.
Well, there you have it. Ollie, thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the talkSPORT YouTube channel. Let us know your thoughts on all of that transfer news. And remember, the window will be back tomorrow to keep you up to date with the latest rumours, done deals and everything in between.